I am here today, and we are here today, to speak loudly about the unacceptable anti-Semitism that we are seeing in our city, in Brooklyn, and across the country. There has been, as you all know, a disturbing number of attacks, a rise in attacks against Jewish New Yorkers. And the numbers are alarming, and the stories are horrifying. No one should feel unsafe in our city because of their faith. NYPD has reported an 82% rise in anti-Semitic hate crimes in the first 4 months of 2019. 82%. 82% in the first 4 months. This is unspeakable. And it's not just New York. Anti-Semitic attacks across our country are rising. In 2018, anti-Semitic assaults doubled, according to the Anti-Defamation League, but New York City stands out. New York is one of the states with the highest number of anti-Semitic incidents in the entire country. New York counted 340 hate crimes against Jewish people in 2018, second only to the state of California, and California is much bigger than New York. That is not a number that we will accept. We do not accept these numbers. Our city is in a crisis. So what do? Do we watch the numbers grow? No. Do we hope that the hate goes away? That is not likely anytime soon. We must proactively work to stop this crisis. This January, the City Council passed legislation to create the Office of Hate Crime Prevention to make sure that this issue is dealt with properly. This new office will do outreach and training in communities and educate people about the impact and effect of hate crimes. It will coordinate with relevant agencies, with interfaith organizations, the many of the groups that are represented here today, and community groups to implement real and effective outreach on this subject. Now we are fighting to ensure that Mayor de Blasio fully funds this office in this upcoming budget. And we will continue to speak out about the unacceptable number of anti-Semitic attacks. Hate has no place in our city. And I also want to be clear that in the midst of having this conversation today, it has been totally and completely unacceptable that people have tried to use a public health crisis about measles against the Jewish community here in Brooklyn and in New York City. This is not a Jewish issue. This is an issue of some really irresponsible people who are spreading anti-vaxxing propaganda and have infiltrated certain communities, not just this community, but other communities as well. And it's important that we call it for what it is, because it has been a way to try to smear a community in a certain way in the midst of what we've been experiencing with hate crimes across New York City, and we have to call it what it is.
We call upon the administration. There was a bill in the City Council sponsored by my colleagues, Councilmember Donovan Richards and Councilman Mark Levine, putting in a hate crimes office, as well as educators to go out throughout our city and educating the people of the impacts of hate crimes throughout the city. We're calling on the administration to implement this new office. The time is now, not tomorrow. With these assaults that are happening throughout the city, it's extremely disturbing. And the fact is, when you look at the Hate Crimes Task Force, where they have over 35 investigators, they only investigate hate crimes after the fact. We need to be proactive rather than reactive and make sure that we go out and educate the public. And we also need to know the underlying reasons of these hate crimes. Is it a hate crime from an individual who has hate in his or her blood? Is it someone that is uneducated and needs to learn more? So it's extremely important to have the New York City Police Department, as well as the district attorney, to report to the New York City Council of the underlying reasons of why an individual commits these hate crimes. So this way, as the City Council, we're better able to legislate and to put in the resources for these issues that are happening across the city. I think it's time that enough is enough. We need to take action. So enough is enough. And once again, I want to thank my speaker, Corey Johnson, for standing up.
The New York Times article on October 30th, for a very sad question, I would call it a commentary. Is it safe to be Jewish in New York? And let me tell you, and I'll quote what they write. When a Hasidic man or woman is attacked by anyone in New York City, mainstream progressive advocacy groups do not typically send out emails calling for concern and fellowship and candlelight vigils. A weekend after the article, after the fires happened, and we also sadly have to say the verbal anti-Semitism. And the speaker, thank you for speaking out against using something, the measles outbreak, as a way and a springboard to anti-Semitism. Let me just say, here in the city, in Williamsburg and the Jewish schools in Brooklyn, at that time when the New York Times editorial board basically came out with a smear campaign about the lack of supposedly secular education, and that putting that as the reason for measles attack, we 96% plus were vaccinated in our school, and this did not stop the New York Times and others to say equating measles with the Jews, and therefore a MTA driver was basically turned their face when a Hasidic Jew wanted to board the bus. You know, quitting smoking is hard.
It's hard.
But you did it.
It's hard.
Stopping anti-Semitism is very hard. With your leadership, we are going to achieve that. Thank you.
Chair Chaim Dov passed legislation to create a citywide agency to coordinate the battle against hate crime, and we need this agency funded and staffed immediately. We cannot waste time. We need a multi-agency response to this crisis. We are not going to be deterred. We're not going to be united. We're not going to back down in the face of anti-Semitism.
As a member of the Black, Latino, and Asian Caucus, I want to let my Jewish colleagues and my Jewish friends know that we stand together in solidarity. So while there's an uptick in hate crimes in general, it seems to be specifically targeted around the Jewish community. And some more historical context, what we know is that when this can only escalate. It doesn't de-escalate unless we de-escalate it. Other than that, it can escalate. So as someone who's had the pleasure of living abroad, and particularly in Israel, I've seen different brands of anti-Semitism. None quite as vicious as what we're beginning to see here in the United States, and in particular in Brooklyn. And I, for one, as a member of the Black, Latino, and Asian Caucus, and as a neighboring district that I represent in Bedford-Stuyvesant, say that we have to stop this immediately. So I'm proud to be a part of the leadership under Speaker Johnson that would put forward policy and legislation to combat it, because we cannot police our way out of anti-Semitism. It takes a collective responsibility, and I'm here for that collective responsibility. Thank you.
So I would suggest we talk about the 3 R's, reading, writing, arithmetic. Let's add one more R, respect. We got to teach our young people respect, not only for Jews, but as was said before by Councilman Lander, respect for all people, because the one who starts with me doesn't stop with me, then continues with you. We will soon be commemorating Memorial Day. Those soldiers did not give their lives so that we would live in fear, so that we would be afraid to practice our faith. So we have a responsibility to fulfill their mission of living in a true free society. When you go to the 9/11 Memorial, you'll find many flags there. One is the flag of the state of New York, has the well-known Latin words, E pluribus unum, out of many one. And I would say, as we come here today, we've been together for so many conferences, we are many. When it comes to standing against hatred, we are one.
Okay, let's do on topic first. Go ahead, sir.
Any legislation in the works to toughen up hate crime laws that will... Any legislation in the works that will toughen up the laws to send a clear message to people that are caught that something will happen, so it's not a revolving door of justice?
Well, you know, we have actually really strong laws on hate crimes. The issue, I think, is twofold. Number one, as Councilmember Deutsch said in his remarks in the press conference, and as I said and Councilmember Levine said, we just legislated creating an Office of Hate Crime Prevention. Because it's not just about after the hate crime happens, it's about preventing the hate crime from happening in the first place. That is through education. Councilmember Deutsch has been a huge advocate with Councilmember Traeger on ensuring that we're doing education in schools all across New York City on history and on preventing hate crimes. So it runs the entire spectrum, from prevention to enforcement in the end. You saw the NYPD here. We have tough hate crimes law in the books, but it's about preventing those hate crimes in the first place and getting this office fully funded. The council passed a bill creating this office a few months ago. We're in the middle of budget negotiations. We are fighting like hell to make sure that this office gets fully funded because it's part of this entire package.
Do you think by having a fur ban would it create more anti-Semitism? Because you have thousands of people right here in this community that wear fur.
I think those are we have a religious exemption, and I think those are separate issues. And we put the religious exemption in right away when we heard from the Jewish community that the Strymel hats were important, and immediately we said we want to make sure that your community is respected, and we did it instantly. So I think the answer is no. Yes.
Speaker, if the